What's up, everybody? MLB Talk 123 here. We're going to examine Fred Wilpan's comments and consider them dumb or honest. Now, Sports Nation said they were honest. The people that voted said they were dumb. I totally agree. Look at the first comment he made about Carlos Beltran. He said, "We had some schmuck in New York who paid him based on that one series. He's 65 to 70% of what he was." You're going to say that to a guy who's done everything you've asked him to? You're going to say that to a guy who has a deal in New York, and he has been great for the New York Mets. He was injured last season. He's back. He's still having great numbers this season. He's one of the last players that are really good on their team, and he should deserve respect. I don't know how you can say that about your own center fielder. I don't know how an owner can just say that about his team. Then let's go to, oh, by the way, Carlos Beltran is going to be traded. Last year, it's an obvious. So he's going to be gone this season anyway. But I would say that's not the best note to end on in New York. The owner calls a waste of a contract and 65-7% of what he was. That's not, I don't think that's right at all. On Jose Reyes, one of his heads of his franchise, one of the bright lights in this team that they might have to trade also. This is what he says about it. He says he thinks he's going to get Carl Crawford money, referring to Carl Crawford's $142 million 7-year deal. He said he's had everything wrong with him. He won't get it. Think about that. He said about one of his stars, shortstop, who's done a fantastic job for the Mets this season and every other year. And he said he's had everything wrong with him. He won't get it. Now, who would you rather have on your team, Carl Crawford or Jose Reyes? Most teams would say Carl Crawford. But with the depth in outfield nowadays and the fact that Jose Reyes is one of those guys that give your team spark, he's a shortstop, he puts up some power, speed, everything. It's going to be a lot closer than you'd think. Now, Carl Crawford, if he was a shortstop, it would be like the perfect player. He'd be like a Hanley Ramirez. But he's not. So, considering the depth in outfield, Jose Reyes is going to get a contract over $100 million if he was a free agent. So, for him to say he's not going to get Carl Crawford money, number one, he didn't talk to his agent. They haven't discussed contracts. That's something that wouldn't have happened. So how would he assume that he expects Carl Crawford money? You know what I mean? So that's the thing that is just a stupid comment. It's absolutely dumb. You can't say that about one of your players you got in your system and you've had for years, and he's one of your brightest lights, and all you can say is negative about what he thinks he's going to get in the free agency. If you were going to be honest, like Sports Nation said, honesty would be like this. Jose Reyes is one of our last great players. Until we develop all of our players, he is one of the shining lights on this team. And he has been for the last many years. He's one of our heads of our franchise along with David Wright. And he is a spectacular player, and he's been great for us this season. We'd love to be able to keep him, but we don't have the money to. Unless we could really find some salary, we're probably not going to be able to sign him, and we're probably going to have to trade him. That is going to be being honest. That's not... what he said was just dumb. It's just bashing it. There's no need for more negativity in a town that's already had negative baseball play the last, few years, really. Now I'm looking at this. He said, David Wright. He said this about his franchise head player, third baseman. He said this about David Wright. He said, he's pressing. A really good kid, a very good player, not a superstar. That's what he said. Okay, if you're David Wright, it's going to be a little mixed emotions. Because you're not expecting no one to say, it's not that big of a deal if he says he's not a superstar. But I think there's definitely under meaning to that. I'm saying he's a good kid, a good player, but he's not a superstar. That's more of an insult than anything. You know what I mean? Like, if David Wright thought he was a superstar and they said he's not a superstar, That's a little insult. If he thought he wasn't a superstar and said he wasn't a superstar, it's still a little insult because the concept of it is saying he's a good player, good, not great, good. He's a good player, good kid, not a superstar. He's not the franchise, the head of the franchise. So, that's not a compliment at all. And, saying he's pressing, if you're David Wright, I don't know how you can say you want to stay in New York. I think that they should all just be like, trade me, get me out of here, rebuild this team, and go try to sign some other players that are going to put you up great numbers, like David Wright will. So I think it's just completely stupid what the GM said. I mean, not GM, the owner. I think it's just dumb comments, really. And then the last thing he had to say about Ike Davis. All he said about him was he's a good hitter. He said this, though, excuse my language. He said, shitty team about his Mets. He said, shitty team, good hitter, lousy clubs. That's what happens. That's what he said. He said that his team basically was terrible. Alright, you're a guy who listened to the fans to get Luis Castillo. You listen to the fans to get Jason Bay. You listen to the fans to get Alvar Perez. That's why the fans aren't the owner and the GM. You have to make executive decisions. And maybe they did think Luis Castillo was right at the time. Alvar Perez was right at the time. Jason Bay was right at the time. I think a lot of people thought Jason Bay was right at the time. But the whole deal is they've gotten very unlucky. And you can't just sit around and blame your own job. You can't sit around and say, Jose Reyes, one of the last really good players on this team, you can't say, he's not going to get Carl Crawford money. That's all you can say about him is he's not going to get Carl Crawford money. All you can say about David Wright is he's a good player but not a superstar. All you can say about Ike Davis is he's a good hitter on a shitty team. And all you can say about Carlos Beltran is he's 65 to 70% of what he was. And that some schmuck signed him based on one series. That's what you say about your team as it stands. If you're going to be honest, go out there and say, I'm going to rebuild this team. We're going to make this a winning tradition again. You don't just bash the good players on your team. That just doesn't make sense. It's dumb. That's why I'm thinking it's dumb. And even if it is honest to him, he should not be owner. If that's seriously honest what he thinks. He thinks, okay, this is what I think about our team today. David Wright, he's not a superstar. Jose Reyes, Jose Reyes is just another all-star player. Not a big deal. He thinks he can get Carl Crawford money, so that's all I have to say about him. Beltran, all I have to say about him is he's 65 to 70% of what he was, and some schmuck signed him. And all I can say about Ike Davis is that he's a good hitter on a shitty team. Just so stupid. It's dumb comments, dumb remarks, no need for it, especially now with the Mets struggles. You need to be rebuilding this team. Don't stop worrying about stuff like that and stop saying stupid stuff like that to the public. Those are dumb comments. They're not honest. Comment below if you have an argument and I'll make you a video response. But that's what I'm thinking right now. Just a glance at the comments. I think they're dumb, not honest. Thanks. Thank you. I didn't think I said thanks the first time. Alright. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. MLB Talk 1, 2, 3. Thanks.